The world of Veridia was a realm of absolute systemic order. From the moment of their birth, every sentient being was assigned a class: warrior, mage, artisan, healer, rogue, and hundreds of lesser specialized designations. This class was immutable, etched into their very soul by the omniscient system. It dictated their potential, their societal role, and their path to power. To be a warrior meant strength and valor. To be a mage meant arcane mastery. To be anything else was to live a life limited by your designation. The system, in its infinite wisdom, ensured balance. Guilds were segregated by class. Cities had districts dedicated to specific vocations. And even personal relationships often formed along class lines. Deviance was rare, and attempts to circumvent one's class were met with harsh systemic penalties. Class corruption, skill lock, or even system banishment. The Archons, the system's enforcers, assured this order remained unbroken. Our protagonist Elara was an anomaly, a terrifying anomaly. She was a Null-Class, or system interface. Instead of displaying a vibrant class icon, showed only a stark, gray, undefined. Her stats were pitiful, and she gained no XP from monsters or quests. She was, in the eyes of Veridian society, a non-entity, a systemic error, a blank slate in a world of vibrant colors. She was, effectively, a nobody. Her parents, both artisans, had been devastated. A Null-Class child was a burden, unable to contribute meaningfully, unable to level up, unable to earn their place. Elara lived a solitary existence in the shadows of the artisan district, constantly hiding her blank interface, terrified of the Archons who would cleanse such systemic errors. Her only companion was a streetwise rogue named Jox, a childhood friend who, despite his own precarious existence, treated her with kindness. He was a Tier 2 Shadowblade, quick, cunning, and perpetually just one step ahead of the city guard. One day, while hiding from an Archon patrol, Elara and Jox were cornered by a pack of goblin skirmishers level 5. Jox, though skilled, was quickly overwhelmed, sustaining a critical injury. Jox, health critical, death imminent. Elara, utterly useless in combat, felt a surge of desperate fear, not for herself, but for her friend. She reached out, grasping Jox's hand, a silent plea for him to live. At that moment, her blank system interface flared, not with her own stats, but with Jox's. Empathic resonance detected. Target: Jox, Shadowblade class borrowed. Shadowblade. Tier 1, temporary skills gained. Quick Strike, Tier 1, Shadow Step, Tier 1 warning. Temporary class duration, 60 seconds. Mana cost, rapid degradation. Elara stared, bewildered. She had Jox's class. She had his skills. Over. She ducked a goblin's clumsy swing, then, with a speed she didn't know she possessed, used Quick Strike, a blurred dagger appearing in her hand, piercing the goblin's weak point. It dissolved into XP, which, to her surprise, went to Jox's still active system interface, partially healing him. The other goblins, startled by the sudden, unexpected display of skill from the Null-Class, hesitated. Elara, her borrowed skills already fading, used Shadow Step, a momentary blur of movement that put her between Jox and the remaining goblins, allowing them to escape. As the 60 seconds expired, the Shadowblade icon on her interface flickered and vanished, replaced by the stark, gray, undefined. Her hands trembled, but a new fire burned in her eyes. She wasn't useless. She was a class hopper. Asterisk, the discovery of her ability plunged Elara into a world of both terrifying potential and profound danger. Jox, once recovered, was astounded. He had never heard of such a thing. It was anathema to the system's order. They knew instinctively that this ability had to be kept a secret. Elara, now with a purpose, began to experiment. The borrowing required a deep connection, a strong emotional bond or shared intent. It was strongest with Jox, their bond forged in shared childhood. She could borrow his Shadowblade class, gaining his core combat skills, but never the same. level of mastery, or duration. The borrowed skills felt secondhand, acquiring more mana and fading faster. She also learned that the XP gained while borrowing a class didn't go to her. It went to the original owner of the class, subtly benefiting them. This made her a unique kind of support indirectly, empowering her allies. Her Null-Class designation, once a mark of shame, became her camouflage. No one, not even the Archons, looked twice at a Null-Class. She was beneath their notice. Jocks, thrilled by her newfound and system-shattering ability, began to teach her the ways of the rogue: stealth, evasion, observation. While she couldn't level up in rogue, she could practice the movements, the mindset. When she borrowed his class, she was more effective. Her base dex and whist slowly increased as she trained. Improving her overall physical and mental adaptability, their first real quest as a duo was to infiltrate a minor noble's manor rumored to hold a powerful artifact. Jocks, as a shadow blade, was the primary infiltrator. Elara, however, provided crucial support. JX needed to disarm a complex magical trap. He was good, but not good enough for this specific type of arcane locking mechanism. Elara found a kindly old artisan mage tier 3 enchantment specialist who, after a few weeks of helping her with odd jobs and listening to her genuine interest in his craft, formed a casual bond with her. Empathic resonance detected. Target: Old Master Thorin, Artisan Mage class borrowed. Artisan Mage tier 1, temporary skills gained. Rune tracing tier 1, arcane sense tier 1. With Thorin's skills, Elara, guided by Jox's directions, was able to remotely disarm the trap, her fingers tracing the arcane runes with temporary expertise. The mission was a success. They had bypassed a challenge meant for specialized adventurers. Using the forbidden art of class hopping, Elaris, increasing use of her ability, began to cause subtle ripples in the system. While no direct class corruption alerts were triggered, as she wasn't heretically changing her class, but merely borrowing, the Archons monitors registered increasing instances of unexplained _class _activity and temporary _skill overlap. They were anomalies that couldn't be easily categorized. Archon Commander Valerius, Tier 5 Judicator Paladin of unshakable faith in the system's order, began a quiet investigation. His network of informants, all rigidly bound by their classes, struggled to explain the strange reports. Meanwhile, Elara, now a Null-Class tier to a bizarre designation that only reflected her growing adaptable base stats, was becoming bolder. She learned that a strong connection allowed her to borrow classes from not just individuals, but from groups united by a common purpose. She befriended a troupe of traveling bard dancers, forging a bond through shared performances, even if she mostly provided rhythmic clapping. When they were attacked by forest golems, Elara borrowed their collective bar dancer, Tier 1, ensemble class, gaining inspiring melody, Tier 1, and dodge roll, Tier 1. She didn't fight the golems. She used the bard's agility and supportive buff to help the actual warriors and mages of the caravan, unknowingly making them more effective. The true value of her Null-Class status became apparent. Since she had no inherent class, she could not be corrupted. She was a blank slate, capable of absorbing and reflecting but never being permanently marked. This made her immune to the system's usual countermeasures against class deviation. Her base stats, particularly WIS and CHR, began to rise significantly. Her wisdom grew as she learned to understand the nuances of various classes. Her charisma grew as she forged the deep connections required for her ability. She took on a quest to deliver rare reagents to an isolated herbalist alchemist, Tier 4 named Zealous, who lived deep in the treacherous Silent Wood. Zealous, a recluse, was initially hostile, but Elara's genuine willingness to help and her lack of a proper class intrigued him. Over weeks, a deep, if awkward, friendship formed. Empathic resonance detected. Target: Zealous Herbalist Alchemist. Class borrowed: Herbalist Alchemist, Tier 2. Temporary skills gained. Poison Lore Tier 2. Potion Brewing Tier 2. With Silas's knowledge, Elara concocted a powerful anti-venom to save a village from a plague, earning her both immense gratitude and critically, a deeper bond with Silas. She was discovering that her strength wasn't in being any one class, but in connecting with them all. Archon Commander Valerius's investigation intensified. He had received reports of a single Null-Class, showing a consistent pattern of class_anomaly_spikes across various regions. This wasn't just a random glitch. This was a deliberate, recurring subversion of the system. He couldn't understand how a Null-Class could manifest such diverse abilities without being directly corrupted. This Elara, she has been sighted near a Shadow Blade operating with unusual efficiency, then a Bard Dancer troop, showing enhanced cohesion. Now an herbalist alchemist with a surge of unexpected success, Valerius growled to his subordinate. She is a parasite, a leech on the system's order. Find her, Elara. Now dubbed the Weaver by her small growing network of allies, realized she was being hunted. The Archons, whose every action was governed by the rigid class system, were trying to classify her, to fit her into a known threat profile. But she had no profile. She was an enigma. Her Null-Class designation had evolved. It was no longer just blank. It now showed a flickering, holographic web, representing the network of connections she had forged. Her new class designation, still mostly unknown, even to her, was a faint, shimmering synthesis, Null-Class core. Her unique progression was not about leveling up in a single class, but about expanding her resonance capacity. She gained synergy, XP when she used borrowed skills to create a positive outcome for the original owner, or when she combined disparate borrowed skills in a novel way. This XP, instead of increasing her own combat prowess, augmented her resonance duration, mana efficiency, borrowed skills, and the quality of borrowed skills, allowing her to borrow higher tier skills. A new system-wide quest was issued by the Archons. Hunt down the synthesis anomaly, eliminate Elara the class hopper, reward, immense divine favor, Archons. This made her a target for every ambitious adventurer in Veridia. Elara knew she couldn't outfight an entire system. She couldn't even outrun it for long, but she could out-adapt it. She could out-connect it. She needed a warrior, a powerful one. She found General Valen, a grizzled old tier for warlord leading a desperate defense against a horde of chaos beasts on the northern frontier. Valen was a man of honor, but also of deep cynicism about the system's rigidity. Elara with Jox's help approached him, offering a desperate and conventional plan. She spent weeks on the front lines, not fighting, but running supplies, healing the wounded with borrowed healer skills from a kind medic, and boosting morale with borrowed Bard skills. She earned General Valen's respect, a man who saw past her Null-Class designation to her undeniable usefulness. Empathic resonance detected. Target: General Valen Warlord class borrowed. Warlord Tier 3 temporary skills gained. Battle: CRY Tier 3, Cleave Tier 3 in the decisive battle against the Chaos Beasts. Elara, standing beside General Valen, unleashed a borrowed battle cry that temporarily turned the tide, empowering Valen's weary troops. She fought with a borrowed cleave that, while clumsy, was effective enough to save Valen's life. She was a warlord, then a healer, then a rogue. All in the span of a single battle, a dazzling, bewildering display of adaptability. Synergy XP 5000 Warlord Healer, Rogue combo resistance to class corruption passive plus 10%. Asterisk, the Archons, and particularly Valerius, were now in a state of crisis. Elara the Null-Class was not being purged. She was gaining power, not by following the system's rules, but by exploiting its blind spots. And worse, she was inadvertently creating a growing network of allies who, by connecting with her, were themselves becoming subtly more adaptable to thinking outside their class. Valerius led a massive Archon task force to confront Elara and her allies. He cornered them in a forgotten dungeon, a place of ancient magical power that should have been a perfect trap. Elara, you are an abomination, a systemic error. You corrupt the very order of Veridia, Valerius bellowed. His holy sword glowing, Elara standing with Jox, General Valen, Silas, and even the Bard Dancers, simply smiled. I don't corrupt the system, Commander. Simply show what it could be. You want order? I offer connection. Valerius, Adjudicator Paladin, believed in absolute, unwavering faith. His power came from unshakable conviction. Elara, in a desperate gamble, decided to use her burgeoning synthesis power directly against him. She focused, not on borrowing his class and impossibility, but on her most advanced, still mysterious ability, Weave of Will Active Ultimate. This skill allowed her to momentarily project the collective will and shared purpose of her bonded allies onto a target. She channeled the courage of Valen, the cunning of Jox, the wisdom of Silas, the joy of the bard dancers, the raw collective, human spirit of her network, and projected it at Valerius. Critical_system_error faith_integrity_compromise target. Valerius Judicator Paladin, divine_conviction_debuff. Valerius faltered, his holy light flickering. He wasn't being attacked by magic or steel. He was being bombarded by conflicting perspectives, by doubt, by the sheer overwhelming noise of collective human will. His singular, unwavering faith, the source of his power, was being eroded by the multitude of beliefs he was suddenly forced to confront. He gasped, dropping to one knee, his holy sword clattering. What? What are you? You are a paradox. The system itself roared with a new alert. Class_system_integrity_critical unexpected_synthesis_overload. Elara had not defeated Valerius with force. She had defeated him by showing him a different kind of power, the power of empathy, of connection, of shared purpose, a force that superseded the rigid confines of the class system. The confrontation with Archon Commander Valerius sent shockwaves throughout Veridia. The system, overloaded by Elara's unprecedented display of Weave of Will, began to experience minor but widespread class malfunctions. Some warriors found themselves with unexpected artisan skills. Some mages developed minor rogue tendencies. The rigid class structure, once absolute, began to fray at the edges. Valerius, though not permanently corrupted, was forever changed. His unwavering faith in the system was shattered, replaced by a profound, unsettling doubt. He retired from the Archons, a broken man who had seen the true power of a Null-Class. Elara, now designated Synthesis Tier 3 Weave Master, was no longer hunted. The Archons, terrified of her ability to destabilize the entire class system, chose to quarantine her, to simply observe her from a distance, hoping she wouldn't trigger a full system collapse. But Elara had no intention of collapsing the system. She wanted to improve it. She wanted to show Veridia that their classes were not chains, but foundations for greater connection. Her new ultimate skill, Permanent Resonance, Active Ultimate, allowed her to permanently imbue a small group of her most trusted allies with a portion of her synthesis power. Jox, Valen, Silas, and a few others suddenly found their own class interfaces showing a faint, shimmering synthesis_AFF-INITY icon. They gained a small permanent boost to their adaptability and interclass skill synergy, allowing them to use skills from other classes, albeit at a reduced effectiveness, without needing Elara's direct presence. The chains of designation were truly breaking. Elara and her now empowered weavers, her inner circle of bonded allies, began a subtle revolution. They demonstrated that a warrior could learn rudimentary healing, that a mage could understand basic blacksmithing. They showed that collaboration, not rigid specialization, was the path to greater strength. The system, though still rigid in many ways, began to adapt. New hybrid classes, previously thought impossible, began to emerge: battle mage, shadow healer, artisan warrior. The boundaries were blurring, slowly but surely. Years passed. Elara, now revered as the weaver of bonds, had transformed. Veridia, she was an elder, her stats now reflecting her immense WIS and CHR. Her body no longer fit for borrowed combat, but her mind a vast tapestry of connections. Her synthesis class was truly unique, her power tied directly to the breadth and depth of her relationships. Veridia was no longer a world of rigid class designation. It was a world where individual potential was celebrated, where interclass cooperation was the norm, and where the boundaries between vocations were fluid and permeable. The Archons, humbled, had become observers of this new, emergent order, their roles shifting from enforcers to facilitators of a more dynamic system. The ultimate lesson of Elara's journey was not about defeating an enemy or accumulating personal power. It was about the fundamental act of connection. The system, initially designed for a rigid, predictable order, had been saved and transformed by a single human who refused to accept the limitations of designation. Elara died. In her final address, too, the United Guilds of Veridia spoke not of classes but of people. "You are not your class," she stated, her voice resonating with the quiet authority of one who had woven a new reality. Or more, you are the sum of your connections, your friendships, your willingness to learn from others. The system gives you a path, but you choose your journey. The Null-Class, once scorned, was now understood. It was not a flaw, but an ultimate potential. It was the ability to be anything, to learn from everyone. And somewhere, in a newly flexible Veridia, a young adventurer, struggling with their own class limitations, would look at the shimmering web on their own system interface, a subtle, permanent change Elara had wrought. I'd remember the legend of the classhopper, the one who taught a world of designated paths that true power lay in the boundless strength of connection. The classhopper had not just changed a system, she had fundamentally redefined what it meant to be a person within it.